I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
So what made you write a novel? I mean, right. People should know writing a novel is not an easy thing. Like, you have to sit in front of a keyboard for a year or so, and you know, always feel like, and I write a lot, but humans aren't really made to like just hit keys all day long.
Well, tell that to Stephen King, and tell that to James Michener, who wrote like every novel was 900 pages. But
Yeah.
What made me write a novel? Well, just another way to express myself, as you saying, multiple income streams, just trying to try everything. Now, I could have written another screenplay, and I've written those, but the problem with the screenplay is if nobody wants to produce it, you don't have anything. But a novel, you have something. You can sell it, people can see it. You have a finished product. And a screenplay is not a finished product. Somebody's got to invest $1 million or whatever it is into making it. And now I could have written a memoir, but a lot of comedians have written memoirs, and I just wanted to do something that hasn't been done quite as often.
What about something like what Jim Gaffigan or Jerry Seinfeld do, which is they basically write their jokes in book form? You can see in let's say Jim Gaffigan's book Food, like every line is a joke, every sentence has a punchline, and of course
I think that's great
language.
For famous comedians to do, and they have a following that's going to buy their books. But for me, I don't think anyone's going to buy a book from a comedian that they don't know that's basically their act or their memoir. So I figure a novel, if it, you don't have to be famous for people to buy your novel, because, most novels don't sell that much, but theoretically it could, I don't know.
The average novel sells 300 copies.
Right, yeah. So, but the average memoir of a non-famous person probably sells even less.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will say, like, stylistically, you made some really interesting choices, I felt. Like, first off, you go back and forth between normal third person omniscient, first person, and then there's the structural aspect of telling the story, but also going back and forth with the memoir, which normally I would say that particular part doesn't. In other novels, I've seen that not work so well, but with yours, it really worked well because it always the memoir chapters were flowing with what was happening in the story. So it was just a different way of continuing the story, which I thought was very good. Like I thought stylistically, it was a very kind of mature written book. Like how long did it take you to write it?
I started before the pandemic, and it's called Ira Spiro Before COVID. So you would have thought that I wrote it with the pandemic in mind, but I really didn't. I started writing it before the pandemic and finished it during the pandemic, probably about a year and a half total writing, and then there was editing and all that. So maybe 2 years from beginning to end. But I started writing it before the pandemic, not knowing how it was going to end. And the pandemic came along, and I said, well, I can't ignore because it took place in the present. It takes place like from the recent past up to the present. So I said, well, the pandemic is so big. I called my friend Narit Koppel, who's a writer and an actress, and I said, do you think I can ignore the pandemic, if it takes place? And she said, no, maybe you can end it with the pandemic. And so I took her advice, and I ended it as the pandemic is beginning. And the whole time I was struggling to find, what am I going to call this thing? The pandemic came along, and then I found my title, Ira Spiro Before COVID.
I also like, though, the title mentioned in the book, Ira Spiro Superhero. I thought was funny, although you repeatedly say your main character, Ira, in the book, repeatedly says he doesn't like that title.
Well, his friend, one of his friends call his fellow comedians says, Ira Hero Superhero, Ira Spiro Superhero. That's sort of her nickname for him, and he doesn't really like it, but yeah, just one of the characters that calls him that.
Why doesn't he like it?
Well, I don't know if he hates it. He thinks it's stupid, I guess. I don't know.
And so you also made the decision, which I agree with, to self-publish. I think everybody should self-publish. I think going through a traditional publisher where you have to wait you have to get chosen, and that's a grueling process. And then B, you have to wait years before it actually comes out, years after you write it. So I think it's smart to self-publish. But why did you choose that route?
For the reasons you said. I mean, I didn't feel like waiting, say, a year, 2 years, 3 years to find first you got to get an agent, then you got to get a publisher. And this is if all goes well, assuming you can get an agent and assuming they can sell it to a publisher. And then the publisher might take 2 years to publish it. So for those reasons that you just articulated with the reasons, I guess impatience, more than anything else. Also, was Ira Spiro Before COVID. I want to write it. I want to get it out there whilst COVID is still, COVID's going to be relevant probably for another 10 years at least. But, it's become an important part of history. So I don't know that it's necessarily going to become stale. However, I did want to get it out there whilst COVID was still a thing, because COVID's in the title, and the end of the novel is the beginning of COVID,
Yeah. And by the way, most, I think in general, self-published books do in fact sell more copies on average than mainstream published books. Most people don't know that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I would say the median, not the average, but the median, which is more important. Because, like Harry Potter will sell 1 billion copies, but like 5 books in mainstream published will sell, 1 million copies. But there are a lot of self-published books that do well among their niche fan bases and can sell 1 million copies.
In part because people that self-publish are often know that they have a fan base or a means to promote them. But like, I wouldn't have self-published if I didn't have access to an audience literally every night of the week, and to say, Dan Naturman, he buys book on Amazon. I couldn't hand out cards to people in the audience that came up to me and said, we love your comedy. If I couldn't come on shows like this, then I probably wouldn't have self-published, because I'd know that I had no means of promotion, because promotion is so important. But because I can do those things, and I can go to shows and promote the book, and go on podcasts and promote the book, and maybe get on Fallon or Corden or Colbert and promote the book. So I made the decision with those things in mind. So I think a lot of people that self-publish, they self-publish because they know they can promote it.
Yeah, and also you have more tools to promote it. So like let's say, so I go back and forth, but let's say I self-publish a book. I can make a deal with someone who has a large audience and say, look, if I do this, like add extra chapters or throw in something else, will you promote this to your email list? And I give you a cut. Like, I'm able to make business decisions around the book if I self-publish, as opposed to if I publish with a Random House. you can't really make deals about
Right,
your
and
book
that's in your
because
and that's
it's
your
their job.
wheelhouse. I mean, in your case, your business is your wheelhouse more so than mine. So you know that the fact that you get to control your own promotion is good for somebody like you who does that. You know, that's something that you're good at.
When did it come out, or when's it coming out? I mean, I have a copy.
It's out. It's out on Amazon and also BarnesandNoble.com, but mainly it's on Amazon. Ira Spiro before COVID. Just you can search for it on Amazon, and you can also read 3 or 4 sample chapters on Kindle if you want.
And during, so obviously some of this you were writing during the lockdowns last year and so on, but during the lockdowns, and I know I see in the book, Ira Spiro does at least one Zoom comedy session. But what were you doing during COVID? Where'd you go? Did you stay in New York?
I was mostly in New. I did go to Aruba a couple times. You know, Aruba Ray. I don't know if you know Ray.
Yeah, I know.
He produces shows down there, so I did that, and you had to get tested to get in, and had to get tested to get out. But other than that, once you're in Aruba, it's pretty good because the weather is so good that you could be outside all the time.
And you were
The shows
performing there?
inside. Yeah, we were performing there. So, but during the day, you're outside, and unlike in New York at the time, because I was there during the winter, the restaurants were closed because they didn't want anybody inside. Or if they were open, I don't know, they were distancing. But in Aruba, everything's warm weather, so you can always go to dinner. You can go to a bar that's outside.
I think that's why so many people moved south during this period, is because most of those states were a bit more open than New York. New York was almost draconian in its keeping people indoor, keeping people out of stores and restaurants and shutting everything down. I don't know if you remember, but Stand Up New York even like sued the state of New York to open up because they weren't opening up. They were opening up other places, but not comedy clubs. How's Noam doing? How's the Comedy Cellar?
The Comedy Cellar is pretty much back, but first of all, it's completely open and without restrictions, but you do have to present a vaccine card at the door. But once you're in, the seats are close together and everything is as it was. The only thing is that because there's less tourists in New York, so there maybe isn't always full every show. Maybe it's full half the shows and the other half are 90% full. It's not 100% back to where it was, but it's mostly back to where it was. And and the Vegas room, there's a Comedy Cellar in Vegas, and that's back open, but I'm not sure if it's at 100% capacity or not. And they're using a lot of local acts.
What if like I just had COVID, so I'm not supposed to take a vaccine for the next 90 days, something like that. I don't know. Each doctor says something different. So I can't go to New York City right now because I can't go anyplace.
Well, no, the Cellar will let you in with a negative test, I think. I think if you have a negative test, you can get into the Comedy Cellar too, or a vaccine, one or the other. But I'm not exactly sure.
No,
and I didn't, by the way.
I was supposed to speak at some conference, and instead now they are requiring me to do Zoom because of the vaccine mandate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like law.
Yeah, I didn't know. First of all, I didn't know that if you had COVID, you couldn't get vaccinated right away. I didn't realize that. You would think there would be some sort of exemption because you have the antibodies, right? Isn't that just as good?
Yeah,
or even better. Necessarily?
Yeah, if it's at least for the next 90 days, it's better.
Well, I assume that I know that Noam allows people in. Oh, then again, there's a new rule out in New York that you had to be like Noam was doing it anyway. He was asking for vaccine cards before the mandate in New York. But now that there's a mandate in New York, I don't know if that's changed things. I'm not sure.
Noam must really hate this mandate stuff. This is not Noam's style.
He doesn't mind look, he'd rather there not be COVID to begin with.
Sure.
But given that there is COVID, no, he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind. Given that COVID exists, which again, he'd rather it didn't.
So what's the next step?
And I also, just to finish your question about what I was doing in the pandemic, I also started learning guitar, but then after 6 months I gave up. Like I was really going at it pretty hard. And then after 6 months, all of a sudden I said, I don't feel like doing this anymore. And I just stopped playing. Maybe I'll get back to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt the urge to like learn something new. And, YouTube, they would watch instructional YouTube videos.
I was like learning on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like playing the piano during COVID, but I never really pursued it.
To
So-
get really, really good, it takes so much time. And if I say, maybe I'll just watch videos of people that play well and sing along instead of learning how to do it myself. I was having a lot of fun with it, but then it's all of a sudden just, I stopped wanting to do it. I don't know why. I can't quite explain it.
I think it's easy to lose passion for things. Like, you do something for 6 months, and then if you're not making, I think progress fuels passion. So if you're making progress, you feel more passionate because you see results. But if your progress is not as good as you would like it to be, it's very easy to lose passion.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's what separates, the great. I was talking about this with Noam, who is a musician, and he was saying that the people that are, the brilliant musicians, they had natural talent, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have pursued it. Like, in other words, it's hard work, but you have to have enough talent such that you're progressing, as you said, because if you weren't, you wouldn't commit 5 hours a day. Like Jimi Hendrix, they say, used to go to the bathroom with his guitar because he just always wanted to be playing. But I think he had to have enough natural talent such that he was making enough progress to inspire that level of dedication.
Right. Well, I think it all feeds each other, because obviously talent isn't the full story. There's probably no professional anybody of anything who thrives on just talent. It's like 1% talent, 99%, working the skills. Like, Jimi Hendrix had some talent, but he still brought the guitar to the bathroom all day long. So you need to work at it, but you also need the passion to continue, because from comedy, anything worth doing is going to suck for a really long time. And even 20 years into it, you're probably it still occasionally sucks. Like, it's not like if you play tennis, sometimes you're going to lose. If you play the guitar, sometimes you're not going to do it as well as you like, even if you're, the best professional in the world. If you're a comedian, no matter how long you've been doing it, sometimes you're going to just bomb.
Yeah.
And it's not about, like, I've never heard someone say about comedy, I'm happy every single time I'm stage. Like, maybe you feel good about yourself that you're good at something and that you're progressing at something, but I don't think difficult things are necessarily happy things. Like, how often are you miserable doing comedy?
Like I said, when I'm doing my out of town at a club, I'm anxious. But when in New York, when I'm at the Comedy Cellar or the local clubs, or Stand Up New York or West Side, whatever club it is, I'm usually enjoying it. But yes, sometimes you don't. Sometimes they're not laughing. Sometimes you're not doing well, and so that does happen. But I don't. But it doesn't affect my self-esteem. It affects my enjoyment, but not my self-esteem, because I know that this is an outlier. I know, well, usually it works, and this time it's not working. So I don't say to myself, I stink, because I know that the 9 out of 10 or 99 of 100 performances are good.
What about when you were first starting, like your first couple of years, your batting average was probably a little bit lower?
Yeah, but
did it affect your self-esteem then?
Oddly enough, I don't remember. I think I just had lower standards, so that if they were kind of laughing a little bit, I would say, "Oh my God, I'm making people laugh," and I didn't realize that the laughter was at a low level. I think I was deluded. I think I was sufficiently delusional, and it carried me. And then as you get better, you insist on just light laughs are no longer sufficient. You need roars. You need explosions to get the same level of satisfaction.
And obviously you're getting that now.
Well, frequently, depending on where you're at. And some audiences, they don't explode. If you're performing for an older crew, say at a synagogue fundraiser or something like that, then you may not get the same explosiveness that you get at the Comedy Cellar on a Saturday night. But you adjust,
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
Have you ever heard of a Dunning-Kruger bias?
Yeah, I have heard of that. Yeah, I have heard. I just don't know what it is, but I've heard of it.
It's a cognitive bias that makes you think that you're better than you are. So, for instance, 9 out of 10 Americans think they're an above average driver, which is impossible. Like only 4 out of 10 are above average, but 9 out of 10 think there are. And people usually say Dunning-Kruger's is a bad thing because it's like it's your brain lying to you. Oh, it's telling you you're great at something when you're not really great. But I actually find Dunning-Kruger bias to be incredibly valuable because it keeps you in the driver's seat trying to get better at something longer than you would have if you realized that you sucked.
Yeah, well,
So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, in the beginning of doing something, you keep going because you think you're great. Only later you realize, I wasn't great then, I sucked.
I hear it all the time. Comics will say, I cannot believe, I'm embarrassed that, my first special or my first Letterman or my first Conan, I look at him like, oh my God, this is horrible. But none of us thought it was horrible at the time. So it's exactly what you're saying, Plus our standards get higher, It probably wasn't that horrible, but it was definitely not that good. My first TV appearance, for example. But I thought it was the greatest thing ever. My first time on stage, it was in front of my friends, but they were laughing. And I said, well, I thought I was great because I was getting laughs, even though it was people I knew.
Well, and when you were on America's Got Talent in 2014, and you were hilarious. I forgot how high did you go?
I was in the semifinals or whatever. I guess it was the semifinals. I think.
Is that the most a comedian's done in America's Got Talent?
No. Tom Cotter went to. He finished second place, and Josh Blue right now is like in the top 5 or something. So. No, people have gotten, no comedians ever won America's Got Talent. And I really don't think America's Got Talent is a good venue for stand-up comedy.
It's more about music.
Music and dancing and anything that have kind of mass appeal. Comedy is I made this point backstage when I was doing America's Got Talent. I said, if Celine Dion or any of the top singers, who are the best singers in the world, whatever, I don't know, Whitney Houston, but when she was around, if they had come on America's Got Talent, they'd have crushed it. The best dancers, the best magicians, the best singers in the world, if they did America's Got Talent, would crush it. But would Louis C.K. crush America's Got Talent? I don't think necessarily he would. First of all, many of his jokes, the network would say you can't do it. And, the ones he did.
Oh, did you have to run your jokes by the network before you performed them?
They tell you, no, you can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. This is too controversial. This is, politically incorrect. This is, you say a bad word. So you're hamstrung that way. And then on a given night, if an audience might not, I've seen great comedians not do well. Mitch Hedberg used to bomb. I've seen Attell, not do well. So on a given night, you just never know. Whereas if you hit the right notes in a song, I think I don't think they're always going to like that. But a comedian,
Yeah.
you just never know.
It's funny you just said that about the musicians, because again, that's something that Ira in the book talks about, is like if music has the same effect on the audience as comedy. And I hear your voice in this book all throughout. Like, and the reason I could say you and Ira, the main character, are neurotic is like you're noticing all of these offbeat details about things that I wouldn't normally notice. I think a lot, and I think I'm somewhat neurotic as well. And I hope I'm not insulting you by saying you perhaps are even more. And I could feel that in the character.
No insult taken.
I could feel that in the character because
Well, yeah, the character makes the point that a musician, if he's singing a song that the people already love, they're going to like the song. Like, if they're singing a song that's a top 40 hit and they're singing it well, the audience is going to appreciate it. But a comic is doing jokes that they've never heard before. So you just don't know.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that when I come out there with a joke that the audience has never heard, that they're going to like it. But if I come out and I sing a song that's a huge hit song, and if I have to sing it well, obviously, but if I do sing it well, it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to go over.
Yeah, sometimes I always think that is the best job, is being like a great musician, because you're making everybody happy. You're filling stadiums with like millions of people, and it's just probably a great experience. Like, imagine being like Bono from U2. When that guy's performing, he must be feeling so good.
But you know what? I think, and I've always thought that too. Like, how could there be anything better than being on stage singing an amazing song? And yet, my guess is, human nature being what it is that these guys, after a certain time, they're on stage like, oh Christ, how many more songs do I got to do? I just think human nature doesn't allow for that level of happiness at a sustained level. So that by the time Billy Joel's at the 20th show of his tour, he's like, oh Christ, do I have to sing Piano Man again? If you watch the Eagles documentary, there might have been more than one, but there was one where, what's his name? Randy Meisner. And they said, you got to sing Take It to the Limit, but that's his song that he sings. And he's like, I don't want to, and I don't think I can hit the high notes, and I'm tired of the song. And Don Henley's like, I'm fucking tired of all these songs too, but I come and I do the songs, and you got to do this. So he wasn't thrilled to be singing Take It to the Limit.
And they got to be sick of doing Hotel California, because that's probably the most requested song in all of history.
I assume so, yeah. So, they probably want to do their new, like, these musicians, they probably want to do their new stuff, but they know the audience wants to hear the old stuff.
Well, I think that's what separated out Bob Dylan from a lot of musicians, is that he writes in his memoirs that he knew he could have gone in the stage that that pop music was going, but he just wanted to do his stuff. And, particularly later on in his career, people just didn't like it as much, but he still wanted to do it. He had enough confidence and self-awareness to just keep doing what he wanted to do.
I mean, I suppose if money had been an issue, he might have gone the other way, but he was sufficiently well off, I guess, that he could make that choice, but
Are you performing tonight?
Well, tonight is Yom Kippur, and I will be fasting, and I'm not religious. I don't know why I fast. It's just, I feel guilty if I don't, and so I won't be performing, no.
Are you supposed to ask me for forgiveness now because it's Yom Kippur?
Well, I don't. I think I've always been nice to you, but if I haven't, then I do ask.
No, you have. You've always been a.
But no, I'm not religious,
scholar and a gentleman.
James. So I don't ask for forgiveness because I don't believe in in that there's somebody up there with a book judging us and writing down, will we live this year, will we die this year. But for some reason, I feel the need to do certain things. I just grew up with fasting, at least since I was a teenager. I didn't do it when I was little.
I guess some things feel more cultural than religious. Like you've been doing something all your life and it doesn't really seem to have a religious flavor to it, and there's nothing wrong with fasting. I mean, I'm the same way, although I didn't even know it was Yom Kippur tonight until you just told me.
Yeah, well, you're worse than I am, but on the other hand, you I don't know, you have children, so you were fruitful and multiplied. So you've done that's which is the highest duty, I think. So you've already done the highest duty, even though your kids aren't Jewish. So maybe you didn't do the highest duty.
I failed as a Jew in many respects. My kids are not Jewish, and I've gone broke many times. So I'm automatically disqualified from services of all sorts. So Dan Naturman, author of Ira, for some reason I have a hard time saying the name. Ira Spiro.
A lot of people say Shapiro, but it's Spiro.
Ira Spiro, Before COVID. Great novel. It's actually the first novel I've read in a while, and I really do think it was a page turner. I loved not only the comedy stuff and the stuff that reminded me of you, but just a great story, and you have, plots overlaying each other, which is and just I think it's very unique how you wrote it, like stylistically. I always like when people take experiments but it still doesn't seem experimental. And I think that the style in which you wrote this and the choices you made serve the book well. People should get it. It's also just a great novel about the life of a comedian, if nothing else. But it's, again, beyond that, great story, great characters, and so on. So I highly recommend people get it. Thanks so much for coming on the show,
Good
Dan.
to
I'm
see you again.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in 2 years, since before COVID. Thanks again, Dan. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.